Eric, thank you. Now to this developing story. Law enforcement leaders in the Mid-South are clashing over a national police training company. Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy calls force science problematic. But a local police chief and several other district attorneys are calling the DA's words reckless and unfair. Action News 5's Imani Williams live in studio with what's at the center of all of this. Imani.
Well, DA Mulroy targeted force science in a recent opinion piece, a company that trains law enforcement officers across the country, including right here in Tennessee. Well, Mulroy attended a force science session in Nashville and calls it problematic, and critics say he's got it wrong. In a USA Today opinion piece, Shelby County DA Steve Mulroy described his experience at a force science training, writing that trainers mocked de-escalation. He wrote, quote, "One thing I learned was a DA can't prevent police killings if the police are trained to kill," end quote.
Do you believe that they are training them to kill?
No. I don't think anyone in particular is deliberately training people to kill. And that criticism was lodged only at that company's training that I attended. It wasn't generally about law enforcement. It wasn't targeting Shelby County or anything like that.
Force science teaches the science behind use of force to law enforcement agencies nationwide. Mulroy says his experience raised concerns the public needs to hear. But Collierville Police Chief Dale Lane says Mulroy's piece leaves out the officer's perspective.
But when you constantly are poking and try to lump everybody into the worst example in any profession, it's demoralizing to the men and women that are out there serving every day.
A group of DAs within the Tennessee District Attorney's General Conference said it is, quote, unfair to prosecutors across Tennessee who make these difficult decisions every year, end quote. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation hosted the company in 2025 as a location for a certification course. Mulroy said the training he attended, also in Nashville, was hosted by the TBI. He told me he's talked with the TBI director about his concerns.
I know that they've been doing it for years. I know that I was present in a room with law enforcement agents from across Tennessee, over 100 of them. I know that it's continuing, and I also know that they're one of the main trainers of law enforcement agents throughout the country.
Mulroy says the debate should center on force science, not the back and forth between leaders.
Rather than getting defensive and shooting the messenger, why aren't they joining me and saying, yes, this training is problematic and we ought to be taking a look at it?
So I reached out to Force Science about its Tennessee training, and I'm still waiting on a response. Live in studio, Imani Williams, Action News 5.